You're listening to the EntreSpirit Podcast, where everything we talk about is related to entrepreneurship. Yes, entrepreneurship can be a crazy ride, but the good news is we're in this together. I'm Sarah Law, and here's your host and my husband, Matt Law.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Law. It's good to be with you on our first episode.
Yes, it is.
How are you doing today?
I'm great.
We're having a really great week, and lots of good things are happening. And this is our first episode that we are creating, and it's all about getting to know your host. So if you've been listening to our podcast for a while, we want to start off our show by just sharing with you a little bit about us and who we are. So we're going to just basically spend a few minutes talking about ourselves, our family, and kind of what we've been through as entrepreneurs, both the good and the bad. So where should we start, honey?
Well, you know, they say to start at the very beginning.
A very good place.
A very good place to start.
You did love The Sound of Music growing up.
Yes, I do. I still love it.
Yes. So let's talk about our current situation, because most of the people that are going to be listening are entrepreneurs. And so I guess we'll tell you right off the bat, we've been entrepreneurs over the last 20 years. And we're going to talk about those businesses and kind of what we've learned along the way. But in our current situation right now, we are doing some consulting. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see we actually have a lot of things going on, but we do consulting. Basically, I'm working for one company where we're helping them with growth, automation, building a CRM for them and different things like that. And so it's usually a couple days a week that we work doing some consulting with customers to help them with their technology, with their business. And so my background is that we've owned technology companies for the last 20 years and a mortgage company. We'll get into that in a little bit, but we're doing some consulting. And then,
yeah, the next thing, a couple months ago, we started leading a nonprofit, didn't we?
Didn't we? We weren't really expecting that, but it was something that we just felt like we should be doing. And after spending a lot of time talking, we are leading a nonprofit, and it's currently going through a phase of growth, and we're doing some building renovations with this organization. And
it's kind of transition, but it's good.
I'm sure we'll talk about it at some time in the future. And then what we've been working on the last couple of years is our kind of publishing company, the book EntreSpirit, that is kind of connected to the podcast and really is our heart for entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We self-publish a book called the EntreSpirit, the DNA of self-starters and people who get things done. And so we have a little publishing house, and we're making content, making a podcast, doing a little blogging as time permits as well. Kind of crazy that we have so much going on. And then you want to talk about our new venture. Let's not say our name of what it's going to be yet. We'll tell them later in the show, but we're working on a new venture.
Well, because we decided that that wasn't enough to be doing. So,
right.
So we are we're entrepreneurs at heart, and we're starting another business, another e-commerce business. We're at the beginning phases of it, but you know, we have started so many different things that it just, you know, here we are again. We're starting again.
We're explaining this to people that are entrepreneurs, but if they are like us in any way, which a lot of entrepreneurs are,
right?
They have 1,000 business ideas going,
of course,
through their head and plans, and so they get it. So actually, yesterday we bought our domain name, and we're working on the branding,
right.
Connecting with suppliers and different things like that. So there's a lot going on with that. And so here's what I'll tell you. Like, we have a lot of ventures going. None of them are full-time, I would say, ventures. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think altogether. They come up to full-time. But, you know, everything that we're putting our hands to right now, we really enjoy. So That's part of it. It doesn't really feel like we're full-time, even though, you know, we really are. You know, it just, we're enjoying what we're doing. And that's fun.
Well, I think, when you're working on stuff and it doesn't feel like work, we're having fun. So right now we are recording from our home studio, and we got a little studio here in our office. And so Sarah and I work together every day, 7 days a week, even, you know, in our nonprofit that we serve at, on our businesses. She helps with our consulting clients. And so, I mean, we are full-time entrepreneurs working together for the last 20 years. So if anything, listening to our podcast, you'll learn about working together with your spouse and things like that. So we live in Central Florida in a little town called Orange City. Sarah grew up almost in this town. When did you move to Orange City?
When I was 10.
10 years old. So she's lived here for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born in upstate New York, but was raised here in Central Florida in a little town called DeLand, which is our neighboring town. So we've been in this area for a long time. So we've been married for 20 years. Coming on 20 years this year. And we have 2 little girls that are awesome and going through crazy times. So
yeah, we say they're little, but
yeah, they're not little.
They're actually not that little anymore, but they're still little.
Yeah. So
they're still young.
Our oldest daughter, Libby, is 15 and Maddie is going to be 12 here next month.
Yeah.
And so we are parents as well. So, with entrepreneurship, you're not just business people all the time. Sometimes you put your dad hat and your mom hat.
It's juggling everything.
Yeah. And our daughter, Libby, has epilepsy. So that gives us another layer of busyness, I think,
yes.
to deal with as well. And so they go to 2 different schools. Life is busy. And so, that's just a little bit kind of about what we're doing right now. Going back 20 years. So we got married in 2002, and I just started our mortgage company, Freedom Home Loans.
Right.
Yeah. And so right after 9/11, 2001, I started my own company. I was a mortgage consultant, mortgage broker. And I really felt like I had an entrepreneurial seizure is what it is. We learned about this later in our life. If you've ever...
In Michael Gerber's book.
Yeah, the E-Myth. Yeah. And so...
That's what happened.
We basically started this mortgage company with I think I got some proceeds from a couple loans closing and maybe had a couple $1,000s. We rented a 400 square foot building that was right next to the little commercial airport in DeLand. It had like 5 cars drive by a day. But we ended up building a pretty successful company and eventually became a correspondent lender. And we're doing our own closing docs and just had someone visiting real estate agents for us and did a lot of purchase business, had a great reputation. But when the housing crisis, our mortgage bubble, I guess you could say, happened in 2007-ish. Yeah, we
started
we
around
closed
then.
Down. Yeah, late 2007 we closed down. It was a rough time, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that at different times. But that was pretty brutal. I was 30 years old when that company kind of collapsed, and we were in the middle of expansion and had employees, and it was my company that I loved. But one thing I really loved about entrepreneurship was seeing things grow. And so in 2008, we started a marketing consulting company, and then it kind of morphed into a training company with a lot of people asking me what I was doing from home. And so Sarah's been a part of all of the businesses. I think you had a job for a real short window in 2007, 2008 that you worked maybe a couple of days a week.
Yeah, it was just a little part-time job.
But since Sarah graduated from college and since we've been married, we were entrepreneurs. And so when we came back from our honeymoon, we went to work, and that was kind of funny as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was like, she's like, you
It was getting used to, Matt wasn't in husband mode. He was in boss mode. And I was like, who is this guy? Why are you talking to me like that?
Yeah. So
navigating that was interesting.
And I will tell you that we'll get into this as we go through our show, but you've probably quit working with me like
a lot of times, but it hasn't happened in quite a lot of years now. But
probably
yes,
about, 6, 7, 8 years since you've turned in your resignation.
Yeah.
So working together can be a challenge.
It can be,
and so even raising when our little girls were born, we were renting a house. We had started all over. Finances were super tight. And we were, bootstrapping to make it ends meet. And I remember you trying to help me, but being so sick with, maybe that was Maddie.
I was pregnant with Maddie. Yeah. And I was so sick, and
you were coming
it's just real life, man. You know, you try, and there's just things that happen, and you got to navigate those things.
So our last company, Four Step Marketing Consultants, ended up being almost really $1 million company. And we had trained consultants all over the world. And then we had a overseas blogger start writing stuff about us. He was never one of our customers, but was kind of an affiliate marketer where he used what they call clickbait to say, hey, this company is a scam. And because he did that, it opened up a dialogue. And what he was doing is basically talking smack about us and then diverting all the sales into his marketing thing that he wanted to do. So it ended up really hurting our revenues by we lost almost 40% of our revenues really fast. We were in the process of expanding and different things like that. We had investors and just, had a commitment letter for $1 million capital infusion. Lots of things that were happening, but it didn't end up working out. And I'm sure we'll get into that stories as we go through there. So that really was in 2000 and about 19 that company we closed down and kind of went through a hard spot there. And so what I'll tell you, if you don't know this already, is that entrepreneurship is a journey.
Yes.
And sometimes you are going to be the king of the mountain, the CEO of $1 million company. Mm-hmm. And then some days you're going to be at the bottom of a pile of garbage, it feels like, and going through hard times. And so one thing I'll tell you is that our goal for the podcast is just to be really real with you, be real honest. We want to encourage you because we love entrepreneurship. We love entrepreneurs and just being around those type of people that are dreamers and creative. But we know what it's like to really win big. Yeah. And we know what it's like to lose big. Mm-hmm.
We do. And the beauty in that is really not, the beauty in it is picking yourself back up and continuing on.
Right.
And that process it's messy, it's hard, it hurts, but it's possible.
Yeah. And so one thing that we want to share is that why we call it the EntreSpirit Podcast is because when we owned a mortgage company, we trained loan officers. I was the owner and the CEO of that corporation, but we would bring people in and we would train them. And almost when people would come in, I could tell whether they're going to be successful at being able to sell mortgages or not.
Right.
And then as a marketing consultant, I did really well personally. And then as we started training people to be consultants, they would come in and I don't know, we probably trained 500, maybe 600 people in all the years that went through our program. And we can almost see who was going to be successful or not.
Yeah.
And so when we say EntreSpirit, all right, what that is that's what Sarah and I would see in the people that we trained, what we would see in us when I was working with business owners to help them grow their companies. It's what I saw in them. And it was something that we've just studied for a long, long time is what is inside of entrepreneurs that makes them so special and crazy.
It birthed out of lots of conversations that we would have about, why is that person able to make it and this one isn't? And just, really navigating that and paying attention to the qualities that we saw in ourselves and in others.
And so as we say, we love to encourage entrepreneurs and be around these people. It's true because the last 20 years, it has been our businesses. Even though we have been entrepreneurs and own company, we've always spent over the last 20 years times training people. And we've loved that. We love being around that. So we hope to impart some encouraging things to you. So no matter how bad it is, no matter what you're going through, whether you're going through bankruptcy or foreclosure or your investors are breathing down your neck or whatever it is, we've been through a lot of these things. We've been through that. We've been
needing more employees or not having enough employees or there's so many pains along the way and so many beautiful moments too.
Raising capital. I mean, there's a lot of that. And so we don't want to talk just about the negative as Sarah said. There's some beautiful things.
There really is.
We've been able to see the country. We've been able to do so much with our lives and it's because we've been willing to take the risk of entrepreneurship, have
if
great
there
houses.
Weren't beautiful moments, then we wouldn't be here wanting to do this podcast and starting another business.
Absolutely.
So
talking about kind of what brought us to this point and what's going to be on here is that, so in 2019, our company's closed and we were, our last company closed, I should say, but we were saying, hey, what are we going to do? And so we took, I don't know, maybe 3 months off. We bought a couple domain names and created a couple brands and planned out 2 more businesses, but we just didn't feel, it just wasn't in our hearts to do those.
No.
Yeah.
Just didn't feel right.
It wasn't a wrong idea. Just in our hearts, we just I'm just not passionate about getting into that. And so we kind of waited for a few months, and then I got offered a job by a kind of executive position at a company to be the director of communications. And it was my first time having a job in 20 years. And I'm going to tell you that I flippin' hated it every minute of it. So when you're used to being the CEO and the boss and you're creative and you want to grow things, one thing I learned, and this is one thing that we will teach as we go on, is that you have to feel trusted if you hire entrepreneurs. And I just really didn't feel trusted and empowered and a little micromanaged. And I lasted all of about 10 months. And then I was ready to start a new business.
Yeah.
And Sarah, she was willing to let me start a new business, and it's gone well. So we'll talk about that. But then at that time, you started working a job.
Right when he was transitioning out of that position, I have always thought, well, if I wasn't an entrepreneur, maybe I would want to teach. And I think a lot of this stemmed from some of the stuff that we've walked through with our oldest daughter, and just some of my own personal, desires in my heart for helping kids and learning disabilities and stuff like that. So I got hired at a middle school here in town to be an ESC teacher. It was an exciting position for me. It was very stretching.
Very, yeah.
And also extremely hard. I've always really admired and appreciated the teachers that have been so helpful along the way with our kids, especially our older daughter. Yeah. Now I'm even more, aware of being, very grateful to them, because it's a hard job. It's a really hard job. So it was a lot. It was good to learn stuff, and it was stretching, but I missed being able to make a difference. Yeah. Really, to be creative and
to have your own freedom to build something to really
be able to accomplish something bigger. You know, there was so many confines within the school system that, you could only really shift and change things so much. So
yeah. What's crazy is, so Sarah had her job for 10 months. I had a job for 10 months. And then I stepped down, and then she stepped down. And the reason is because our consulting business was growing. And then we had both agreed to lead this nonprofit organization. So we are there. So we are the president, vice president of the nonprofit. We are the owners of our consulting company. We are the owners of our publishing company that our book is published, and we are going to be the CEOs of our new e-commerce company that's starting. So we are leading all of these organizations. I think part of being a good leader is you want to find other people that can help you. So our goal is to get a lot of time, have a lot of margin. So like, how do you have time for your family or for your kids? It's by delegating and using systems and technology to kind of leverage your time. And so we're going to be working on that, and you're going to go on this journey with us. But it hasn't been easy for us, because over the last couple of years after that company closed, we went through some tough times, some tough relationships with investors, just really tough. But then you ended up getting a severe melanoma cancer.
Yeah.
And so
when you got hired for your new job.
First day.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a spot on my leg that I ended up going to the dermatologist for. And I thought, I really thought that it was nothing. Because I'm always digging in the dirt. I like to work in my yard. And I thought, well, I just got a little something out there, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out to be an advanced and very aggressive melanoma. Then they did not give me a very good prognosis at first, and it was very scary. And from start to finish, from the time that I found out that I had this growing on my leg to the point where I found out that I was okay, took quite a few months. So it was kind of an agonizing, like 4 months of just waiting for the all clear.
Yeah, maybe even longer. So,
yeah. And then in between, I had 2 surgeries on my knee, lymph nodes removed and tested, and just the emotion of it in the midst of so many other things shifting in our lives. I will never forget just the stress, and I think just the confusion of our lives and where we were at the time, and just like, why is this happening to us? And fortunately I am clear, and it was okay. And I feel so fortunate that that's the case. I think
in case,
so thankful
in case
for
people
that.
don't understand the different types, because I really didn't understand the different types of skin cancer, but melanoma is the most advanced kind that usually leads to other types of cancer, or can, if it's undetected, because it grows inward and then it can spread. And that's why they did. And so when you say surgeries, like Sarah was put out, I mean, she has a huge, bless her heart, I love you, honey, you have a huge scar on her leg. And I keep telling her, you need to come up with a better story, like shark bite or something.
Something. I could probably pull that off living in Florida.
Yes, that's so she has
huge.
a huge 8 inches on her knee. So been through a couple major surgeries plus lymph node removals. And that probably was one of the hardest, coming out of closing a company, then being almost within months being diagnosed with cancer. Right. Going through all of those tests.
Initially, I was told I would have to be on immunotherapy for at least a year. I mean, and the original prognosis, because of the numbers and the way that it was multiplying, it was grim. It was grim. So I feel like the fact that I ended up that final all clear was, hey, you're all clear. And no, you don't have to have therapy. You just have to, follow up on this a lot. Every 3 months, I think I go.
Yeah.
But it was a very interesting time. Interesting isn't even the best word for it. It was just,
it was a heavy time.
It was heavy. Yeah. And I feel really fortunate though, because so many people don't have that end answer, in the way that I did.
And so that was heavy when I was working that job, and we were, I think I only took one day off my entire time because of the position I was in and the demands. And it was the day you were having the surgery. And I remember you were in surgery, and I was getting texts and emails from my peers that needed stuff for my job. And I thought, you know what, I can't do this. I can't, I can't please everybody when my wife's in surgery. And it was one of those times that said, we're going back to entrepreneurship. Despite the pains, despite, whatever we've been through, we're not giving up. And that was one of the signs. And that was, you probably got the all clear right around late December. Yeah. Cause we went to New York for our anniversary, and this was right before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And then COVID, the whole pandemic of this, which is, obviously still going on at the time of this recording. I mean, it intensified the communications that were needed for my job, which made it unbelievable. And then when I stepped down, you started teaching.
The first year back after the kids had been home for an entire, last quarter, so it was a different, I was, I came back, I started teaching, probably one of the most stressful years
ever
of teaching. And everybody kept saying to me, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And honestly, there was so much, there were so many good things about it.
Yeah.
There really was. And honestly, I think that if I just hadn't had so many years of entrepreneurship in my past, like I probably would have stuck through it. But honestly, I love entrepreneurship. And I feel like both of us kind of set out with our jobs wanting, it was just kind of a means to an end. Like we wanted to be entrepreneurs again.
Yeah. And you like all the security with jobs and all this other stuff, and said, well, yeah, we'll try that for a season. But there's, like today we've worked together, for a few hours this morning, worked on some budget things, worked on the new brand that we're working on. Then we went out to lunch, went for a walk in downtown. Now we're making a podcast. Like this is our day. And so when you've had the freedom and the joys of that, it's really, really hard to go back to being a W-2 employee that is, subject to that. So with COVID, it really made our jobs crazy. But what was worse is that we ended up getting COVID really bad. And so in January of 2020, is that right?
No.
2021. January of 2021. So I ended up catching COVID and being really, really sick. I didn't get admitted to the hospital, but I did fracture a rib from coughing so bad. I almost thought I was going to have to be admitted. And I thought, hey, this is great. I'm done with COVID. This is good. No more COVID. My rib did heal up, and I was thankful for that. But then in March, you got pretty sick. Was it March? Yeah, March.
Yep. I got it at school and brought it home and thought, well, he just had it, so he should be fine.
Yeah. And so I took care of her. I held her hand. I was there.
But he got it again.
But then I got it really bad this time.
And ended up in the hospital.
Double pneumonia. And I had a Lakeview room. I tell people this is the most expensive room I've ever had. And I stayed at some nice places. $10,000 a night room overlooking a lake. So that was
his hospital stay for 5 days. Yeah. And fortunately, you're here with us.
I'm happy to be here.
Yes.
And it's crazy. If you haven't had COVID, I'll tell you, like the unbelievable exhaustion after you're done with it. It lasts.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So it's been crazy between the ups and the downs and all of that. It's been a fight, and it's out of those pains, out of those struggles, out of the last 20 years of watching people start businesses and win and working with entrepreneurs. That is come our book, The EntreSpirit, the DNA of self-starters and people that get things done. And so if you're into like entrepreneurship, I think you'll get a lot out of the story that we wrote. And the story really is from the pains of entrepreneurship and also the beauties of what it can be. But it's not a destination. It's not someplace you're going to go and arrive. Entrepreneurship is a journey, and we are excited to be on this journey with you. So I'll tell you that we have been through some crap, and we've got some scars, but I don't think there's ever been a time that we are more excited about our future than right now. So first of all, we're excited about the podcast, excited just to hang out and share with you and just encourage you. Our goal is to make this an encouraging podcast, talk about marketing, talk about business, all of the things that we're going to be going through as we launch this new company, leadership, finance, just different things that we've learned along the way. So we're excited for the podcast. We are excited about our new e-commerce launch, which I'll share more about as we go. But our goal is to build a multi-million-dollar company and to have it be incredibly successful. And we're bootstrapping. We're starting out again, fresh. But it's exciting because when we wake up in the morning, we're getting up early and we talk about it.
Right.
It's exciting.
the thing is our heart is just to continue to pour into other entrepreneurs. And so if you find yourself on this same entrepreneurial journey, and if you can identify with any of the things that we're going to be sharing on this podcast, then that's great.
Yeah.
Like that's our heart, because we know what it's like to have positive days when you're up and everything's going great. And we know what it's like to have days where you're like, man, can anything else go wrong? Right. But either way, it's just the fight and keeping on.
Yeah. To get up when you get knocked down. And so we're excited about our nonprofit. We're getting ready to go through this big building renovation. It's exciting. And just pouring into leaders there as we kind of lead these people and just what we're learning and going through it. There's a lot of good things in life, and you can choose to look at all the negative things, or you can choose to look at the positive. So share with you just a little bit about the vision for the show as we go. We are going to be talking about, just like I said, things that entrepreneurs face, and what they're going through. Sometimes we'll be interviewing some people. Sometimes we'll take some questions. Sometimes me and Sarah will dive into a topic and just kind of dig in about that. And we're going to share our journey along the way. So with that said, I think that pretty much wraps up our first About Us episode. Anything else you think you want to add?
I don't think so. I'm excited.
I can tell you are.
There's a lot that we have to say about this.
But not in this episode. Hey guys, thank you for listening to our introduction episode all about your host. Thanks again.
You've been listening to the EntreSpirit Podcast. Be sure to pick up a copy of our new book, The EntreSpirit, the DNA of self-starters and people who get things done. For behind-the-scenes videos and more free resources, please visit EntreSpirit.com.